The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom present an interesting challenge in terms of alignment within the established Zelda timeline. Nintendo have remained intentionally vague, suggesting they sit at the end of the timeline in a distant future. And it's a simple solution, but one that leaves many fans wanting, primarily because the game itself contains references to elements of all three timelines in various aspects. Today we're exploring the possibility that the Zelda timeline isn't as straightforward as Nintendo might be letting on. You see, what if it's not a timeline at all, because it's actually a universe? Let's dive into it. Have you ever wondered how Link and Zelda traverse different realms, or why certain events don't align perfectly in the timeline? These inconsistencies hint at a more complex universe consisting of worlds existing in parallel within 4D spacetime, often referred to in quantum mechanics as a many-worlds view. You've likely already come across it, actually considering its popularity and iconic properties ranging from the Big Bang Theory to the Marvel Cinematic Universe and more recently, Spider-Man with Miles Morales navigating the trials and tribulations within the Spider-Verse itself. The Legend of Zelda series has not been stipulated or framed explicitly as a multiverse in the way that other franchises are, yet it comprises many of the same elements, suggesting that multiple timelines or realities are at play. What I mean is that the Zelda universe isn't limited to the Hyrule that we know. We've seen Termina in Majora's Mask, for example, the Twilight Realm in Twilight Princess, and let's not forget Lorule in A Link Between Worlds. These realms don't just suggest a multiverse, they outright prove that fact, with the same multiverse mechanics being found in Zelda that we would see in other franchises, labeling things like the Dark World and Lorule as parallel worlds in one hand and engaging in time-bending manipulation with the other. Even the official branching timeline itself is the basis of a multiverse, and this is where perspective matters. Each branch that comes from Ocarina of Time represents a different outcome, or an alternate series of events. And it's not time itself that splits, but rather the fabric of space-time, creating an alternate reality. Each branching path represents a distinct world coexisting in parallel with the other in one at the same. Each reality is a representation of a variation from one to another. We see the same recurring tropes and themes, which are a key feature of any multiverse reality. And Zelda is a classic interpretation of that, with recurring elements creating familiar worlds that are similar, yet somehow different. Examples of this can range from their recurring characters to locations to even elements within the game such as rupees, fairies, or even earning hearts as you progress. Similar to how games have evolved from 2D to 3D over the console generations, the approach to storytelling and lore building has matured, and now Zelda features greater complexity and depth for dedicated fans to enjoy, with the connected worlds moving beyond the linearity of the series past. Traditional views of the Zelda series have tried to fit each game into a chronological order to create that timeline of events. However, with the many worlds interpretation and the idea of a connected universe in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it does become clear that the series isn't just a sequence of events, but rather a vast tapestry of interconnected realities. In this expanded universe, each game can be seen as a window into a particular world or reality within the broader Zelda fiction, and some of these realities share histories while others will diverge at critical points. And this leads to how this application of the theory would apply with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and how they fit into the wider lore. Imagine that the separate universes or timelines, while generally not interacting, have a distinct point of merging, forming a nexus of sorts at a particular point in time. The vast expanse of time that is suggested between the games of the past and Breath of the Wild opens up the possibility of a convergence event that brings together a unification of the existing histories and legends of the past into a single unified realm. Now, there could be many reasons for that. The situation may have been the result of another upheaval type event occurring in the past to alter the course of the realities, leading to the current Kingdom of Hyrule we all know today. And consider that we've also got the classic Zelda time traveling shenanigans going on constantly, which could be the trigger of a unification. But specifically for today, I wanted to focus on Zelda's trip to the past in Tears of the Kingdom, and how that is essentially creating a new reality altogether that forms a culmination of the three existing timelines and realities by the time we come into Breath of the Wild. The current history and timelines still exist as they are, and the current version of Hyrule is one that now becomes in existence because of the upheaval event that's triggered in Tears of the Kingdom's opening. With Ganondorf awoken at the beginning of the game and Zelda obtaining Rauru's secret Sage Stone, this stone itself changes from being one that harnesses light power to instead heighten Zelda's latent time powers, and that is part of her blip back to the ancient past, where she meets Rauru and Sonia in an era that's referred to as one about the founding of the kingdom itself and intimately connected with other events we know from Zelda lore, such as the Imprisoning War. And this is where the dimensional view comes into play, because the majority of opinions I've heard consider the game to be one that's a retcon of past events and is acting to reboot the franchise, essentially suggesting Nintendo are ignoring the established lore and chronology. But for me, that perspective should change drastically when you add the additional element of space-time and consider the actions of Link and Zelda as they influence this reality from opposite ends of the timeline. And this is where the beauty of the storyline in Tears of the Kingdom comes into play, to effectively answer the timeline debate once and for all. Imagine the timeline as a map of sorts with two distinct points. We have the ancient past represented by point number 1, which is Zelda, and the other by point number 2, which represents the present. And this is where we find ourselves controlling Link in the midst of an upheaval event with the falling sky debris and regional phenomena underpinning a calamitous spreading of gloom or an upheaval event. And those 2 points in time are connected by a circle of influence, if you like, and kind of like the Ouroboros, where we have the directional change where one impacts the other. Referring back to point 1, which is the ancient past, it's established to be the era where the Kingdom of Hyrule was founded. It's a time that's post Skyward Sword and before the events of Minish Cap and Ocarina of Time. And so it's the cycle of influence that exists between Zelda in this ancient past and Link in the present day Hyrule that simultaneously alter the events of both the past and present, as they essentially bookend the greater part of the Zelda chronology. It's kind of a pushing and pulling of the very fabric of reality, not too dissimilar to how Cass might be seen to play the accordion in the Champion's Ballad. The result is a new reality that's formed from an amalgamation of past, the present, and this includes the 3 branching timelines or realities that form after the events of Ocarina. When Zelda travels back in time, she brings with her the 8th secret stone, because initially there are only 7. This gem, the one with Zelda, is essentially the same one that's possessed in the ancient past by Rauru, meaning 2 of the same secret stones exist at the same time and influencing the past in ways that are inherently connected to her time jump. The additional secret stone, the connection with Link, Fire, and the Master Sword are all aspects that are changing the tapestry of reality in real time. And the outcome ultimately influences things like the death of Queen Sonia and Ganondorf's transformation into the Demon King when he created the Secret Stone of Darkness. This kingdom, this Hyrule, is one intimately connected to the upheaval, and the upheaval itself is a consequence of alternate reality being formed and determined by the actions of Link and Zelda influencing the course of history simultaneously from both the past and present day. The ancient era that Zelda travelled back to is one that predates Ocarina of Time, and that's caused a dimensional rift that exists both before and after the splits that occur in the current chronology. It explains how we can experience an alternate history of Hyrule without any retcons or changes to the existing lore, because by definition, they had to exist in order for the Hyrule of Breath of the Wild to happen in the first place, where Ganon awakes, causing the upheaval and Zelda to travel back in time. It's a classic Zelda brain melter, but it accounts for how the current Hyrule can have aspects of all 3 timelines, as it creates a new reality based on the 3 realities that currently existed being merged into one by the actions of the upheaval event caused in the present day, affecting the history of a new reality created by the events of the game in the past. No wonder that we have the Ouroboros, which features in the logo design, because indeed this reality cannot exist without the events of the past that formed the present day calamity in Breath of the Wild, leading to the upheaval in Tears of the Kingdom, and the duality of past and present affecting the fabric of reality. The significance of the connected worlds can be seen in how the sky is literally falling around the kingdom, whilst regional phenomena magnify to catastrophic proportions, and it shows that there's an imbalance within the fabric of reality. Indeed, it's going to take the conclusion of the game's storyline to return that balance and prevent Hyrule from utter annihilation. But Tears of the Kingdom is also packed with references and elements that support a multiverse view beyond just what we've talked about here. We've got temporal overlaps, with the game introducing time travel and Zelda being transported to the distant past. It's a mechanism reminiscent of a many worlds interpretation where actions in one timeline can have repercussions in another. Zelda's journey to the past and her interactions with ancient characters definitely seem to create a new branching point, adding another layer to the Zelda multiverse. Aside from bringing new explorable areas to build on the Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, we also saw the introduction of the sky in the depths as something that could be seen as metaphoric to the multiverse concept. The sky with its floating islands might represent higher realms or alternate realities from Zelda lore, such as Skyloft, Cloudtops, or even the Sacred Realm, while the depths themselves could symbolize the darker, more mysterious aspects within the universe of Zelda, such as the Dark World or even Twilight Realm. But this layered world design allows players to experience the breadth and depths of Zelda universe in a tangible way and allowing a universal experience within one single standalone game. Then you've got the Zonai devices and abilities, with things like Ultra Hand, Fuse, Ascend, Recall, and Auto Build, distinctly acting as tools that manipulate the fabric of reality themselves. For instance, the Recall ability rewinds an object's movement is reminiscent of time manipulation, frequent in Zelda games, and the Zonai themselves, well, they're said to have descended from the skies, which could suggest they possess a deeper understanding of the multiverse and that ability to manipulate reality itself. And that is also a direct homage to the tribes of old and an uncanny variation of the typical role played by the Sheikah and other advanced civilizations in Zelda's past. The Zonai devices, to me anyway, emphasize the interconnectedness of all things in the universe and how that can be manipulated, impacting the reality of the world. We also have echoes of the past. One of the central themes from Breath of the Wild was Link's amnesia and his journey to recover his memories. This could be symbolic of the Zelda universe itself. It's trying to remember and reconcile its fragmented history. Indeed, things like the imprisoning war and references to the Demon King are nods to a link to the past and broader Zelda lore. And then we also have the elements of the artifacts, the secret stones, and they're linked to time travel and transformation, such as Zelda's draconification. They can be seen again as tools or consequences meddling with the fabric of reality. But further to that, they could be also seen as keys to accessing or influencing other realities within the Zelda universe. Ganondorf's transformation into the demon dragon after swallowing the secret stone could suggest that these artifacts have the power to transcend timelines or merge aspects of Ganondorf from different universes. Could be a manifestation of the multiverse influence itself, with Ganondorf drawing power from his various incarnations. These next two are definitely a little more speculative, but my own sort of takes on this concept and what it could mean. One refers to Tetraforce, and that's typically seen as a fourth piece of the Triforce, but for me, I would consider it to be representing the fourth dimension or reality. It's an idea that challenges a linear timeline in favour of a multidimensional view. We have references to observatories, in-game stargazing, and constellations heavily noted in Breath of the Wild and definitely following on in Tears of the Kingdom, but it's also one that features in other Zelda games including Majora's Mask, where it plays a big portion of the game. We also note that this is an application of the whole space-time universe approach within the wider Zelda lore, and it could be a tongue-in-cheek reference to kind of indicate where they're heading in terms of the narrative. The next one though is another interesting take, and this is about the Bargainer, which I would like to consider to be an ancient entity that could even be older than the Triforce's creation itself. Originating from a space that might exist somewhere between the light and the dark realm, this being could be observed as one that indeed holds the balance between the light and the dark and has done for eons. The reference here though is the four eyes, which could be seen to reference the fourth dimension, as well as the ability to see across multiple realms and timelines. Perhaps those eyes represent vision into the past, the present, the future, and the ethereal plane. And then finally, when we look to the game's conclusion, there's another aspect in reference to the multiverse in terms of restoration and balance. The game's conclusion with Link and Zelda restoring that balance and peace to Hyrule can be seen as a metaphorical mending of the multiverse's fabric of reality. The next question would be what happens with Zelda as we progress. Well, a recent interview with producer Mr. Aji Inuma and director Mr. Hidemaru Fujibayashi broached this timeline question directly, and it was brought up here that Tears of the Kingdom's duality of a future timeline and simultaneously having the deep dive into the past was a way of allowing players to explore events or histories that were previously unknown or overlooked. Fujibayashi actually hinted at the possibility that Hyrule might have been destroyed and founded again. This is a lot of support for this multiverse concept, where different timelines or realities can have varying histories. Nintendo themselves remain steadfast in leaving room for fans to interpret, suggesting that the devs are embracing a more open-ended narrative, and Ionuma's comments about returning to the same world if a new reason arises indicates the potential for furthering the multiverse concepts within Zelda lore. It's enabling a freedom of sorts for unique stories that can work harmoniously with Nintendo's emphasis on creating an enjoyable player experience first and foremost. It invites narrative freedom while maintaining a cohesive universe bound by shared lore and themes, and Aonuma and Fujibayashi's comments hint at a flexible and evolving understanding of the Zelda series and its lore, with Tears of the Kingdom, for me anyway, embracing that multiverse concept, exploring both the future and deep past of Hyrule, and also appearing to move forward towards a more open-ended narrative structure where different realities, histories, and interpretations can coexist, providing a rich tapestry for both developers and fans alike to explore. But what do you think? Could there be more to this idea of a Zelda-Verse, or could there be something else at play entirely? I'd love to know. If you enjoyed it, give the video a thumbs up, it really helps out the channel. And as I mentioned, if you have any thoughts, comments, or suggestions about today's topic, or anything about Zelda in general, just feel free to drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and it's always a treat. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. As always, be good to yourselves, keep being amazing, and we'll see you next time here on GameSmiths.